All right. Well, as you can see there on the screen, my name is Jeff Bell. I am the CEO and the founder of Bell PR and Marketing. We want to welcome you to what is our first and inaugural Insights series. We are a full-service senior living PR and marketing firm based out of Kansas City. We also have an office that we've opened up in Dallas, and we serve senior living clients across the country. We do everything from kind of traditional PR and media relations all the way to digital marketing, direct mail, SEO, crisis communication, and pretty much everything in between. We founded the company about 2 years ago, and we have seen some really nice growth and success. And as part of that, we feel like we've got a team of experts, both in-house and outside, who can share some things with the industry that are important. A little bit about me: I worked as a broadcast journalist prior to entering the senior living industry, and have been serving senior living providers now for a very long time. It is my passion, which is why I founded the company. You don't want to found a company that that's not something you're passionate about. So we love serving clients across the nation, and we are really committed to building industry thought leadership. And per our slogan, we want to be that bellwether. We want to be a leader for you and to help you to achieve all of your goals from marketing to PR. Just a couple of program notes for you before we get going. The program is going to complete around 12:15. If you've got questions, feel free to send those to me in the chat. I'll cover anything that we get that way once our panel gets done. And we'll have a Q&A at the end of the program as well as time allows. So if you don't want to send in the chat and you'd rather just ask it outright, feel free to do so. We'll do it that way. And then we will send you a link with the podcast version of this as well. So if you have to leave early, we understand people's schedules get busy. We will make sure you've got this presentation in full. And so with that said, let's get started. And I'll do some quick introductions of our panel. Today, of course, we're talking about marketing to the boomers. It's a really important topic for senior living. And of course, the boomers span a wide generation, which our panel will talk more about. But they are coming, and they are different than any generation of seniors that we've seen so far. So today you're going to hear from Brent Rodriguez. He's Corporate Sales Director for WellQuest Living. You'll hear from Berg, founder and partner at 3 Architecture. You'll hear from Dana Compagnone, who's head of client success at Roobrik. Rubrik's a really exciting company. A lot of you may be familiar with them. Cole Marvin, Executive Director at Friendship Village, Tempe, and Steve Shields, who's the founder and CEO of Pact. Again, if you have questions, send them to me in the chat or wait till the end and we'll have some discussion. And with that, we're going to go on to our first panelist, Brent Rodriguez with WellQuest Living. And he's going to get us started with a little presentation called Selling on Boomer Boulevard.
Hey, thanks, Jeff. Thanks for allowing me to be a panelist here, and love that Bell PR is the first one, and I'm able to kick that off. So I'm titling my session Selling on Boomer Boulevard. Historically, in my 20 years experience in sales, it's been typically, the assisted living, independent living, memory care, very need driven. And we're really, as a company at WellQuest, we started in 2017. We're trying to go after that more active, younger, independent senior. And I think more and more companies are trying to go after that. If we can go on to the next slide. Our portfolio looks like this. I'll do a brief overview. Right now we have 7 communities. 3 of them are new development, and we're having a ton. Our community that just opened 6 months ago has 13 move-ins in Menifee near Temecula, California. So we're crushing it. That's the dining room at Menifee down below. And then up top is Granite Bay. We opened up 2 communities in Sacramento. I feel like our sweet spot is right on. We're building about 120 apartments per community, larger campuses. These are both at 6 acres. And, we're trying to make it as affordable as possible. High-end finishes, pool, bocce ball, pickleball. And one of our new development communities in Elk Grove in South Sacramento has 50 cottages on site. Within 6 months, we had a waiting list on these cottages. So they're duplexes, and they get 1 meal a day in our restaurant. And so we love our model. Our next phase is we're getting into the 55 plus baby boomer market. We're getting into Sparks, Nevada, which is our newest community. We're breaking ground this year. And that one has what's called the Q, which is our active adult 55 plus on the same campus as a independent assisted living and memory care community. But let's go over some types of senior living options. Many people have heard of Fountain Glen. These are senior apartments where typically you sign a 1-year lease. It's for people who many times are still working. They're downsizing from their home. Some people, it's an affordable thing. You know, it's just, you know, I'm 40. If someone my age were to get an apartment, there's just no cake parties going on next door. So that's Fountain Glen. So that's one of the bigger ones in that space. Senior condos, a lot of people have heard of Del Webb. There's an escrow transaction, you buy it. And again, there's tons of amenities, activities, but there's typically no meals in the senior apartment space or the senior condos. So, you know, most of those folks are the baby boomers. They're a much younger population. And then we have where my strength is coming from is the independent assisted living and memory care. So in my 20 years, it's these types of communities, the Brookdale, Sunrise, these types of communities. Brookdale is publicly traded. These are month-to-month communities, and that's what I deal in every day. And then there's a CCRC, continuing care retirement communities, where you have a large entrance fee, and there's different plans of these, you know, and there's a percentage they can get back depending on the community. Oftentimes there's a skilled nursing facility, depending on what type of CCR it is, where that would be attached, where it's an age-in-place type of community. So if you look at these numbers here, I know it's pixelated. I wasn't able to blow this up, but one thing that really stands out, I want to point out on the slide is, if you look at Brookdale, the total number of units across the country, they have 60,000 apartments. And look at the total number of employees, 45,000. But one thing that stands out is look at Holiday Retirement. They have 29,000 apartments. And look at the staff, only 6,900 employees. The reason is Holiday is a true independent living. So you still get meals, housekeeping, transportation, but it's not licensed. So this is another form of independent living to attract a younger population where they don't need to get a physician report. They're trying to go after that more active, younger, independent senior. And then they contract out for home care services through a third-party agency that would give a discounted rate because they can give bulk service for them. So we'll go on to the next slide. So the boomers, there's a lot of them. There's 79 million. They control 3/4 of America's wealth. So we really need to, you know, make sure that we have a plan in place, because is my little cute little picture. It says a wave of 10,000 baby boomers are coming. So 10 million. No other group has had a greater impact on culture and economy over the last 50 years. So I just love and respect and know that how much they've done. I you know, same thing with the Greatest Generation. And so, you know, they've had a huge impact on our culture. And so we want to make sure that, you know, we're set up, because my feeling and my gut tells me that we're not going to even be ready for it. So we need to, you know, it's opportunities like this where we get experts together to share best practices and opportunities to create, you know, options for them as they continue to age. So tracking the boomer wave. Right now, our biggest competitor is home. I still feel like there's still that stigma for baby boomers, what their parents, aunts and uncles and grandparents experience of skilled nursing facilities back in the 70s, with the linoleum floors and the smells, and it has evolved. I am telling you, everyone here already knows this, but I mean, there's really great options that are available for people out there that they're not even aware of. So I think the more people to educate boomers on, they can have fun. They're independent. They come and go as they please. They have opportunities to get involved and have a purpose. And so I think with more education and more opportunities to get people into our beautiful communities, the more successful we have, but there's still that stigma, and it'll take a little bit of time. So yeah, it's not, for me, it's not Brookdale and Sunrise as my competitors, it's home. And so we want to focus on the social model and lifestyle, not the traditional medical model. Historically, as everyone knows, it's very need driven. You know, in my part of the industry, you know, it's like, hey, Brent, my mom, we weren't quite ready. mom fell, she's going to be discharged next Friday. What do you have available? And it's very fast moving, and we'd rather be working with seniors themselves, moving on their own terms rather than the adult children. And with the boomers, we are working with themselves, not, family members. So that's a little bit of a shift. And let me go back. Sorry, one more note on that. Boomers are moving on their own terms. Yeah, not need driven. Yep, go ahead. Sorry. So technology habits, they love smartphones. They're the fastest growing segment of all smartphone owners, which is awesome. And 77% of smartphone owners between 50 and 64 associate them with freedom. So I found that really interesting that they associate them with freedom, while younger people see them as leashes more than freedom. So I think that's an interesting slide. Trends to watch. So I got 2 slides here on some interesting, that's I went all over the place on these, but I just thought these are great little nuggets and takeaways to take away. So 42% of all consumer spending is done by 55 plus. And there's going to be changes in purchasing habits. Many are looking for restaurants, entertainment, relaxation, friends, security, and innovative medical care in the future. They're not afraid to spend money. They will spend money if they see value there. And our industry is expanding and growing every day, and they're willing to invest in it if it makes sense for them. Also, you'll see, I see that in the increase in big ticket purchases. Some will get an inheritance from their parents who will eventually pass, and some will get an additional source of income. And so that may affect other parts of our industry, like travel, cruises, jewelry, artwork, and home improvements. So we may see that those industries change as boomers continue to age as well. Other boomers, this is kind of random, but many will adopt pets for companionship. So this generation has always grown up with pets, and so not that the greatest generation hasn't, but I think that'll be a huge piece. There's a lot of independent people out there. They're more likely to spend money on innovative technology. Women live longer than men, so boomers will skew more female. So that's something to think about. The male-oriented purchases will taper off. So that's when you do your demographics, that's something to really think about for the boomers. And delayed retirement for physical, psychological, or financial reasons. 65% plan to work past 65. So that's interesting. And I'd love to be able to hire them, and so let's continue to think about that to see, let's, have a purpose for them. So what are they looking for? Safety for some people, peace of mind for the future. I see that sometimes there's someone that says, hey, Brent, I never had kids. I don't want someone to make decisions for me. I don't have really close friends or neighbors. I don't want my nieces and nephews making decisions for me. I want to move on my own terms, and I'm going to make plans for my future. Where couples, sometimes one spouse who's independent and they start seeing another spouse physically slow down or cognitively slow down will want to have a plan for the future in case something happens to themselves or their spouse. Everything's taken care of. For some people, it's peace of mind for the future. They're looking for friendship, love. We can't forget about that there's a lot of seniors that are looking for that. The opportunity to love or to learn, sense of purpose, fun. Cooking, some people don't like to cook, and no upkeep of the home, and to be closer to family members. Love this little slide. Feeling what makes us different, and in a lot of communities different, whether you're in a Del Webb or a 55 plus, it should be the feeling that you get when you walk in. That's what makes you different. Have welcome signs. I mean, this crosses all paths of senior living, for active adults to anything with boomers. We want to create buzz and have the movie theater and have things going on. We have to listen to our prospect and find out what they're interested in before we start being the Vanna White to show the community. We want to be able to really dive in deep, connect, and find out what they're looking for. We have resident ambassadors. One of the top 2 things after COVID that we're seeing that is really changed is cleanliness. People are looking to make sure that, when they're touring, that cleanliness is one of the most important factors. And then host groups bring people into the community and, so they can see how beautiful your community is. Some of the secret sauce, you can build independent living or assisted living communities in one market and build them in clusters. And then you could build a 55 plus down the street. And that way they can refer to each other. So I see that being something that more communities and companies might look for. If you really want to fill it up quick, larger, not smaller sales teams, do creative follow-up, do home visits, tons of outreach, use your leverage for the number of apartments you have and say you want to be able to refer to them. I'm kind of old school. I love direct mail with the right demographic. Of course, the Google My Business listing and lots of reviews, digital marketing, geo-targeting, also known as geofencing. You can target senior centers, Whole Foods, and places where boomers traffic so they get ads on their phone. And host a lot of clubs, host different groups. When someone's touring an active adult community, even though they know they're not going to get involved, or they most likely won't, they like the opportunity to be able to join a club, such as a lunch bunch and some of these things, and join a Spanish class or Mahjong or bridge group. So they're looking for the clubs and groups. So I would make a big list of the clubs and groups, and that will attract that more younger independent crowd. This is some of the things that we've done. So if you look on the top right up here, it has a welcome sign for guests. So they have their own reserved parking space. That's Guy Smed that's up there, but we do that for tours and professionals. We do a lot of resident referrals. That's one of our things that really, it speeds up the move-in process when residents refer other residents. So our program's called Friends Make the Best Neighbors. We make sure our staff's taken care of. We know when the staff's taken care of, the residents are taken care of. And then at this community in Pasadena Highlands at the bottom, we do a banana bread, but we tell a story. So that's Chef Wayne. And so it's a recipe that came from his grandmother. And so it's, we always want to tell a story with everything that we do, not just serve banana bread, just to serve banana bread. Healthy mind, healthy body. So boomers are looking for all these different types of lifestyle factors. One of the most important factors is we all need 8 meaningful conversations. So when we self-isolate, when we don't have opportunities to get involved, or because of COVID, our church group is not happening, or there's not as many opportunities to get involved with different friends and neighbors and things. So coming into a community where we have activities and events and excursions really boost that. And so we want to use all these different types of lifestyle factors. Websites targeting 55 plus. I recommend 15 photos in a virtual tour to not go too crazy with photos. Interactive floor plans where there's drag and drop for furniture. Boomers are tech savvy. They want to be able to arrange their furniture in their apartment. There's companies like P11 that does that. Again, lots of activities, clubs, events, opportunities to get involved. I highly recommend doing a live chat or an AI bot where you have 24/7 to be able, someone can have instant feedback. Now it's gone into speed to lead where we're trying to answer in seconds, not minutes or hours, to answer those form fills and web inquiries, and have a really strong call to action. You can have a form fill when people download, and if it says download an e-brochure, and then you can contact them to get their contact information or find out what our rates are, or top 10 ways to live healthy into our 70s and 80s, or an article on find out if you're ready for independent living, and it can be some like a survey that you have to fill out. Get some badges on your website. There's tons of different opportunities that are out there. These are just a few of them. They help build trust in what we do every day. So it's worth throwing a couple of these up on your website and earning these badges. And that's it. Thank you, Bill. Appreciate you and Jeff putting this together. If anyone has any questions, I'm available. My contact information is there. And I look forward to hearing from the rest of the panelists and learning more about where our industry is going to capture boomers.
Thanks, Brent. Great way to kick us off there. And again, there's his contact info. Feel free to send me a message in the chat if you've got a question specifically for Brent. We'll get to those at the end, or you can just wait and we can do it, just screen to screen, so to speak. So we'll move on now, and we're jumping into our next presenter. And I'm excited about all of these, but I'm really interested to hear what Rocky has to say. So we kind of had community perspective there from Brent, industry perspective. a lot of times we skip over the architecture side of things. And so I'm excited to hear about this. We really wanted to put together a panel that covered everything. And Rocky kind of rounds that out for us. So Rocky Berg, I'll turn it over to you. And like I said, excited to hear what you have to say.
Thanks, Jeff. Brent, that was great. So Rocky Berg with 3 Architecture, we're located in Dallas. We cut our teeth 38 years ago with hospitality design, the Peninsula Hotel in Beverly Hills, for example, a boutique property in Beverly Hills. 25 years ago, by invitation, the client said, I love what you do in that hospitality market. Can you help me with my senior living product? And so that was our invitation to enter this space. So we're all about, to Brent's point earlier, we're all about the wave that's been continuing to come towards us. But many of our clients are asking us, can you make the wave deeper? Can you make the prospect pool a younger entree into the properties? And so clients turn to us from our hospitality experience in terms of infusing that into the senior living experience. When we start our projects, and Brent spoke about this just a minute ago, any great property, hospitality, senior living, it's all about that emotional connection. So reinforcing that and pre-thinking through the process is a large part of it. So we go through that process at the beginning before we talk sticks and bricks and programming. What are the emotional connections that you want to pursue in terms of the creation of a property? And they're always unique and they're always personalized for those environments. So we use those words after we pull those words and we listen to our clients, we use those words to measure our design all the way across the process. So original design through construction documents and ultimately with our construction partners as we finish out the construction and filling up the property. So this is a great space for an innovator to work, an interior designer and architect. I'm licensed as both. Our tribe is nomadic. We travel from Hawaii and across the southern swing of the mainland United States. So if it's hot, humid, a hurricane or a tornado coming, those are the markets we tend to work in. The consideration here is we have been bridging the gap of the prospect from the greatest generation to the boomer appetite. And so as you think about that, the way we approach it is instead of starting with the senior living model, we start with the hospitality model and we inform it with our understanding of the senior living. Now, keep in mind that really, and Brent spoke to this, it's really about a purposeful life in our opinion, and how do we reinforce that in the architecture that we provide as the backdrop for the choreography of living within a community. So Brent said this as well, it's all about the lifestyle, especially on the independent living perspective. So it's considering purposeful growth, it's considering health and wellness. And of course, we all know we live better and longer in a social community environment. So we're all advocates of that, I think, as you meet this panel today. I'm going to share a couple properties with you that are basically coming out of the ground right now or on the board, so you can see what's in our heads and our clients' heads across the country. So this community is the Woodlands at Furman. We have numerous clients who are looking to repurpose and rebrand themselves. This particular property came out of the recession. And so as they came through that, they had limited funding, so to speak, as they came out. So they now have come back and they've added a significant contribution to their overall community. So one of the major branded messages, what they wanted to do was to up their culinary game and also their wellness aspect. So while adding a master plan of 80 new independent living residences, again, bolstering their revenue side, they put a wellness village right at their front door. Now, this is all moderate construction cost construction. So it afforded a great price point for them to help manage their overall costs. So in this, and go ahead and move the slides forward. In this, we offered a brand new wellness center and a fitness center, classrooms in there. There's a beautiful pool venue, which is, again, for swimming and aerobics as well. Go ahead and advance the slide. And so you can see here, it's all about the light, and again, back to the engagement. But a major portion of it was also improving their culinary prospects. And so display kitchen, teaching opportunities, great food venues were introduced to the project. Go ahead, Bill. So again, these are post-construction, so they're just as we were finishing construction. But again, multiple opportunities in terms of how food is delivered. And again, they had to do all this through the COVID window. And so that wellness village that you saw earlier, they were able to multi-purpose that space and serve a meal program there while this dining venue was being reformed and recreated, so to speak. So very creative operations and programming, and ultimately with a very successful venue. The residents just love it. Here in my backyard, Presbyterian Village North for Forefront Living. So a 50-acre park-like setting where we added 112 independent living residences. But the important contribution beyond the additional residents was the ability, again, to upgrade their amenities and their common spaces. So on this property, it has a centralized lake. We're improving the lake, and we've centered the new independent living residences right on that lake property. This property is all about the outdoor rooms, if you will. So while we're adding all these, say, internal venues, it's all about the enclave around the lake and the multiple event spaces, say in the lawns or in the courtyards. Next slide. So this 30,000 square foot amenity building called the Corrigan Building was built back in the 70s. So we had a great opportunity to bring that property forward with a new aesthetic. It's not really contemporary. I'd call it more a transitional aesthetic, but we're able to bring their cafe forward, which is associated to their wellness and pool center. The whole front door experience is different in terms of the aesthetic and the way you enter the property. We took their existing library there to the left and totally reworked it. And you see the old 1970s white wood trusses there, but then accessorized it with lighting and then expanded the dining venue out to that lake, the newly improved lake property as well. We've got more residents, more dining capacity to satisfy. So it's all about the light and the connectivity to the outdoors in that park-like setting. A sister project for Forefront Living in North Dallas called the Outlook at Windhaven. This property is on 18 acres and it sits next to this beautiful tree-lined creek. So again, just like some of our resort properties, we have a great view opportunity. So from a design perspective, we focus much of the residential windows towards those amenities. Then nested between those buildings are beautiful courtyards offering different opportunities for outdoor experiences and gathering. So to the upper left, you see the pool building in the foreground of the larger IL building. We've got beautiful walking trails and golf cart paths that meander the property. There's 30 cottages within this development, 150 independent living, 32 assisted living, and 24 memory care. So it's a beautiful property and we're starting construction this in 2 months. One thing I'll add to this, go back just for a sec. People always ask me about the opportunity to engage, say, the kids and the grandchildren. So we're always looking for creative ways to put art or something where the kids can play. So that lower picture to the left is a water fountain, but we're always looking for different ways, sublime ways to kind of take art, so to speak, gathering and create fun spots for multi-generational participation. The aesthetic here, the overall community is envisioned and is a kind of a Texas hill country aesthetic. So natural expression of natural materials, woods, timbers, stone, all beautifully brought together from the interiors. Again, it's all about the light. As you look at the next slide, you'll see that some of our interiors of the actual residences. So one of the distinctive improvements, I think, in terms of design is the client agreed with, let's raise the ceilings up to 10-foot ceilings in terms of the residential spaces, which is a significant improvement. It allows us to bring more light into the residences with clear stories. The upper left picture is a picture of a courtyard within one of the cottages. So there's light coming in from the outside perimeter, but also a private courtyard for every cottage within the property. But you can see that the higher ceilings and again, the sophistication of the aesthetic has been found to be very, very popular with the residents of North Dallas. And then I wanted to bring it really into the urban setting as well. We're working very, very hard with our clients to be a more integrated community. So it's about being inclusive and not exclusive. So trying to lower or eliminate the moat around a senior living community. And so urban opportunities are often a place where that happens more readily. This is Harbor's Edge in Norfolk, Virginia. So the brick building to the right was done about 12, 15 years ago. And so we've added this sexy sister, if you will, which affords greater views out to the harbor. It's a working harbor, beautiful harbor. And so it's all about the glass again. But here, this is connected to the larger community at the podium level, if you will. So we're able to add these independent living residences, plus expand their assisted living and memory care, and of course, blow out their dining and their wellness programs as we added this expansion. But it's an example of a vertical solution. Again, the residents are loving the views, the view corridors in either directions. And so the units are typically a little bit bigger and expansive. This is really more of an active aging solution. So the Cellars is a project that is a rental apartment community. It's attracting quite a bit of affluent seniors, so to speak. It's nested next to Hotel Emma. Hotel Emma, all this is in San Antonio, and it's called the Pearl District. Hotel Emma was the old Pearl Brewery, and we transformed it into Hotel Emma, which is in Travel and Leisure's top 5 properties in the country. Nested with it is the Cellars, and it's the residential piece. But the idea of at the ground level, the connectivity with all the activities that happen on the weekends in terms of the markets and again, the fairs and the events, it shows the popularity of that intergenerational connectivity within a community of shared uses. The last thing I thought I'd share with you is just a piece that gets back to the emotional connection. And it's really, I just want to speak to the idea that we're always looking to design the list of human spirit. We're always looking to improve and better, not just the prospect in terms of the residents themselves and their guests and their families, but also the folks that we work with in terms of the entire process, our clients and our consultants, so that we're all providing a better and better product. Thank you.
Rocky, thanks, appreciate it. And some really, really good insights there. And again, we're trying to cover this from all the angles, and I think we're doing a really nice job so far. So we're going to move right along here. We know everyone's busy, and we appreciate everyone who's joining. And again, if you did join late, you can send questions for our panel in the chat box, or feel free to save them to the end, and we'll have some time here. Excited about this next one, Dana Compagnone. Dana and I have worked together on a number of projects over the years, and she's going to talk to us from the Roobrik perspective. Many of you may be familiar with Roobrik. I certainly hope you are. They're definitely making waves in the industry, and so she's going to talk a little bit about what boomers say they need to kind of move forward that buying process. We know that process in senior living is probably longer in terms of the customer journey than any other industry. And so with that, I'll be quiet and let Dana go.
Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Bill. I'm glad to be here today. As Jeff noted, I'm going to be talking to you about what boomers say they need to move forward in the buying process. So Bill, if you can advance. My goal today is to ensure that you walk away with insights that you can immediately layer into your marketing messaging. I'm going to do that by sharing direct from boomer data that's been gathered from Roobrik's lead generation conversion tool that's currently on more than 1,000 senior living community websites. So hopefully we'll help you walk away from insights from those hidden audiences that tend to leave your website. So before I jump in, I want to level set just to make sure everybody knows who Roobrik is best suited for. I like to think about website browsers in 3 buckets. So bucket number 1, these are people who are not prospects, people who you don't want in your sales flow. They might be vendors or career seekers, or often resident family members who are trying to connect with somebody at the community. So you have ways on your website to keep those into a separate path. Bucket number 2 are who your salespeople are used to talking with. Those are consumers who prefer to get their questions answered. They'll fill out your primary call to action, so your contact form, or they'll reach out on your phone number. It's just easier for those top prospects to pick up the phone and talk with someone. Bucket number 3 is a little bit different. These are people who are not yet sure who to trust in your process. So they're on your website. A lot of people call them tire kickers. Maybe they're mid to high up in the funnel. They're people, like I mentioned before, who would typically leave your website after doing browsing. But that's where Roobrik comes into play. When they find our assessment on your website, our goal is to help educate them. And for your sake, ideally get them to opt in. So we help consumers find out what they personally need. We help them understand what their options are and help them navigate the often confusing and emotional journey that is, finding out whether or not senior living is right for them. We help them feel empowered and confident, and ultimately, our tool is there to help build trust in the community by guiding them along. A lot of seniors don't want to be sold to, and that's those anonymous browsers that Roobrik tries to capture. So when I talk about Roobrik and the data that I'm going to show, that's kind of who we're talking about, is that bucket number 3. So our platform helps consumers get unstuck by closing that education gap through 23 questions that we serve up, so that our tool encourages them to take the next step. So as I mentioned before, button number 3 will hit that schedule, or bucket number 2 will hit that schedule a tool. They'll find the phone number, they'll call you. Bucket number 3 will scroll down and look for content that is related to them. And when they opt in through the Roobrik assessment, we share all of the answers to help the sales team in that discovery process. So we help illuminate that kind of what they need from you in return. So on the next slide, you'll see 2 specific assessments that I'm going to be sharing the data from. We have 6 different assessments, but 2 are especially relevant to the boomer audience. So the statistics that I share today specifically come from, is it the right time for senior living? And is it the right time to downsize? So, and just a quick orientation on the next slide, you'll see that the data I'm going to share today comes from over 100 operators that we work with, more than 1,000 senior living communities for this presentation. I've specifically narrowed down the age bracket to 55 to 75, which almost aligns with the boomer market. I think they start at age 58. So keep that in mind on the next 10 slides, that this data is specific to the boomer market. So to help you understand a little bit, when a person enters into the Roobrik platform, the first question that we ask is who they're taking the assessment for. Are they taking it for themselves? So you can see here that dark blue color is the seniors. And they're doing, you can see here, as Brent noted, a majority of the inquiries are coming directly from the seniors themselves. If they can also take the assessment for someone else, and that's indicated in that light blue color. And you can see, the more often they're taking it for someone else, you have, over on the right-hand side, higher acuity versus on the left-hand side, lower acuity in terms of who is moving through the assessment. So in this visual, we've just taken that question, who are you taking it for, and aligned it with the levels of living that are best suited for them that they receive on our results page. So our platform will tell them, based on an algorithm of scoring questions, what level of living is most appropriate for you. So we know this boomer market covers a large set, as Brent noted, and to Jeff before. Their needs vary from very independent all the way up, through the continuum. So On the next slide, you'll see that 39% of the boomers who took the Roobrik assessment, that hidden audience of bucket 3, ultimately decided to become a lead. They said that they were ready to talk to somebody at the community after taking the assessment. On the next slide, this dark pink audience before indicates that they're not ready to talk with anybody. So 61% of the people still aren't ready, but we've provided education and built trust in the community's brand. So we've kept their attention. Our assessment takes about 5 minutes to get through and to get to their results page. They can still get the Roobrik results without opting in, but it's still great exposure and helps position the community as a resource to them. So you've still helped them, even if they're not ready to talk to an advisor. So on the next slide, you'll see that of the people who didn't opt in, 57% are still considering a senior living community. So there's something holding them back. And I'll get to that on the next slide, but you can see that they're still very willing to consider moving eventually. So when they don't opt in, but they're ready to speak with someone at the community, they tend to err towards needing higher levels of care. So all of these people have opted in, and you can see whether their needs are low, which is more on the active adult independent side, moderate, which is, maybe independent living plus or assisted living, or even into the higher acuity. So assisted living with, a lot of services, or even skilled nursing or memory care. So it's not, surprising that the people who do opt in are more needs driven. And then naturally, I guess on that, they tend to be more concerned about current or planning ahead for future care needs. So you can see that those, current or future care needs are in the #1 position if they are ready to talk with somebody. They're still, indicating that there are other areas that they're concerned about, but the top one that they're looking for is planning for their future. And then on this next slide, we get to see what the non-opt-ins said. So the people who didn't want to talk to a community, you can see that just curious about their options shoots really high up. They're still planning for the future. You can see care needs is in position #2 now, but downsizing on the very right-hand side, which was the last thing that they were interested in if they did opt in, becomes high, in the 3rd place position here. So future care needs are still important, but really at this time, they're just exploring and wanting to know more information about, what your community offers. So when they don't opt in, the #1 reason is because 81% of the boomers said that they need financial information, and 50% of those are looking for information on cost and various ways to pay for care. So you need to ensure that your web content includes a lot of information on this topic in multiple locations and in very easy to find ways. You can see cost and paying for care are top on the list there. On the next slide, you'll see we also ask, one of the questions that we ask is about the barriers that they need to feel more confident in the buyer journey. And it might not be surprising that even the people who don't opt in, they need to feel confident about their financial situation. 86% indicated that they're worried for paying for care, with 41% saying that they're very worried, on whether or not they can even afford the lifestyle, let alone the future care that they are pre-planning for. On the next slide, 53% said that feeling more confident on this topic would help make the decision easier. So they're just looking for that confidence. They're looking for that education. This is where you can help educate them to get them past that barrier, which is hindering them from taking the next step forward. So just, again, building that confidence, educating them is a huge opportunity that you can do on your website, because otherwise they might not ever inquire. So one last On the next slide, I guess, one last data slide there before I wrap up. 81% of the boomers who opt in are at least somewhat prepared for a move. So that's really positive, right? They're ready. They've, done some planning. 42% still say they need help understanding their options. But they are, they're ready to take the next step. They just need someone to point them in the right direction. So on the last slide, just to kind of keep them moving forward in their buyer journey and helping the sales team and consumers get an opportunity to connect, our data shows that there are 2 key takeaways. And there's so many other questions that we ask that I didn't even get to. Our assessment isn't just about finances and care. There's, lifestyle information, but the 2 key takeaways that we see on the boomer data is the first being price transparent. And whether it's gated content or not gated content, meaning they either do or don't need to become a lead to get to it, that's not important, but it's important that your site provides financial education. And this could come in many different forms, as kind of indicated here: starting figures, cost calculators, a page or a section on the various types of contracts that you offer, whether you're month to month or entrance fee, even as specific as if your entrance fee amortizes down to a certain percentage of refundability. You can include education about other options and support, like veterans assistance or long-term care insurance, other ways to supplement costs. Blogs are an excellent way to talk about finances and provide education about finances. So, definitely get creative and think of multiple ways that you can be as price transparent as your organization wants to be. Because if they don't find it from you, they'll find it from someone else. And hopefully it's not your competitor that does provide a lot of this type of information. Brent noted, the kind of social model, lifestyle opportunities to get involved. They still want to find that information. Obviously, care options and planning for future care was really important to them, but also so was lifestyle and ways to combat isolation and help them feel safe. Also important, as I mentioned before, was that information on downsizing and helping them through that process. You can do this online, obviously, and also once you have that captured audience and they become a lead, you would obviously start sharing that information with email campaigns. So they might not be ready right away to move forward, but the more you can position yourself as a resource, the better off you're going to be. Otherwise, they'll just leave and you will never know who they are. So if you have any questions about the data that I shared today, my contact information is on the next slide. If you're interested in learning more about Roobrik, don't hesitate to reach out to me. Or if you want deeper information on any of the boomer and you want us to slice or dice that to get more insights that you can use as sales teams or owner operators, please don't hesitate to reach out and connect with me on LinkedIn. But I'm glad to be here again. Thanks.
Dana, thanks. We appreciate it. And we'll keep rolling along here. Bill, if you want to go to the next slide. Next person I've known for, probably a decade, Cole Marvin, Friendship Village, Tempe. And I always jokingly say, well, not jokingly, maybe joking about how I'm not quite age and income qualified yet, but that someday I might just call Friendship Village home. They are some of my favorite people. And I'm looking forward to hearing what Cole has to say. Cole, you've been executive director there since 2007. Is that right?
I arrived in 2007 and was promoted to executive director in 2012.
All right. Fantastic. Fantastic. Well, we're going to move on forward, and Cole's going to talk a little bit about the Fountain of Youth.
All right. Thank you very much, Jeff, and everybody else. Looking forward to sharing. I've actually been with Life Care Services for pretty much my entire career, 22 years. 10 years in Hawaii and the rest over here in Tempe, Arizona. One other interesting fact is that over the past 30 years, the village has only had 2 executive directors, which I think is an incredible statistic that we're very proud of. The village has been around since, we're celebrating 42 years at this point. So we like to say we got into the business before it was cool. 50+ acre campus, more than 800 seniors. I have a team of more than 560 employees. And again, located here in Tempe, Arizona, not too far from ASU. I think we are really doing a great job with attracting baby boomers. And I've got just a few things that I want to cover that I think are primarily driving that. But one is, of course, having been around for 40 years, we're now into the 2nd generation residents whose adult children got to see their parents enjoy an incredible retirement here at Friendship Village. And so now we've got, more than 50, we may even be above 50, more than 40, maybe close to 50 2nd generation residents living here. So they've had a chance, they understand that, getting in sooner is probably better than waiting until it's too late. So I think that's one thing that's driving it. Our average age of entry here at Friendship Village is 77 years old, which is pretty darn low. And on Friday, I just approved my first 65 and 63-year-old couple. So had to double check that one about 3 times before signing off, but it's happening. So next slide, please. 3 reasons that I would like to talk about today that I think is what's driving our ability to connect with boomers and convince them to move here are advertising, and in specific, our placement. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. The event planning and messaging, we push the envelope. We really do. We work with the TANE and have asked them push the envelope. They sometimes push it a little further than we probably should, and we have to reel it back a little bit, but we're not afraid to turn some heads and possibly put some people out. And I'll talk a little bit about that. And then our programming, we really approach this community as if it is a college campus. We do not even really think of ourselves as a senior living community in many ways. And so when you're here in the programming, that really is the thing that is driving this. So next slide, please. So this is a good example of not being afraid to offend people. We ran this ad in the Phoenix Open, and I'm sure everybody has heard of the Phoenix Open and quite the golf event that it is. And we ran this, and I'll be honest with you, we actually had some of our older prospects come back and say, I really found this offensive. I can't believe that you did this. And we apologize, of course, and say mission accomplished. But really and truly putting it out there. And I think that's something that's important is we really don't take ourselves too serious. We love to have fun, and we do a nice job of putting that out there in front of people, whether you're on the campus, on the website, or seeing our advertisements. The message is pretty consistent, and we like to joke around. We party harder than any other senior living community in the country. And we attract folks that do love to have a good time. It is incredible how much fun they have, and just doing what they want us to do, which is give them opportunities to be themselves and enjoy themselves. So it's really not rocket science, and it's happening. Next slide. So this would be a messaging. We like to have some fun, push the envelope again a little bit. We're going to smoke a lot, and we'll hit the sauce. This was an idea I approached our foundation on, to go out and purchase a $16,000 trailer smoker, a commercial smoker. And they said, sure, let's do it. So we drove to Oklahoma and put it on the truck and drove it back, and had a great time. And our whole goal was, and literally I was in competition barbecue. So the goal was, nobody's going to make better barbecue than us here at Friendship Village. And so we worked hard to get our recipes down, and then turned it into the programming side where We use this twice a year at the very least. We have these large prospect events where our residents, their adult children absolutely are coming, as well as the prospects that we've invited. We have a band come. It's a resident-based house band. They are a ton of fun, and it's an event that everybody looks forward to. And when you would never believe you're on a senior living property when you're at that barbecue. And our barbecue is good. We'll put it up against anybody's out here. But and then again, taking those opportunities, we do an annual first responder event. We're right on the line of Mesa and Tempe, Arizona. And sometimes it's hit or miss as to whether or not Tempe's responding or Mesa. So we invite all the police, the EMTs, and the fire departments to come to the village for a barbecue. And it's awesome. And it has developed a reputation where people, they really look forward to it. When we had COVID, there was a lot of bummed out people about not having that. But getting those folks on our campus, and then they see things that are happening and they're sharing that with their parents and their other friends. So just using that programming as an opportunity to get out in front of as many different people as you possibly can. Next slide, please. So again, just talking about programming, Brent was speaking earlier, and he said we have to listen. And that truly is something that we do a very nice job of, is listening. We had this has been several years ago, but we had a couple ladies that were moving in, and they called me and they wanted me to come out to their house. They had a home on the top of South Mountain, incredible view, and they wanted to show me some stuff and just kind of plant a seed. So I drove out there and went up, and these ladies had created their own sports bar in their home with this incredible view of the whole East Valley. And they had this really neat shuffleboard table that it was very large, as you can imagine, and they wanted to donate it to Friendship Village. And they said, "You guys need a sports bar." And I said, "My God, you're right, we do." And we created a sports bar. So we have the Del Fuego sports bar. Those ladies were super proud. That shuffleboard, people go in and play even when the bar is closed. We've put buzz time trivia in there like you would see at Buffalo Wild Wings. And again, approaching this like it's a college campus, and making sure that we're acting that way as well. So listening to folks, we do a happy hour. It's the first Thursday of every month. I bartend it, and that's one thing that's been neat, is I've been able to incorporate a lot of my passions into what we do here, and I think that helps keep it real. So I'll bartend this happy hour. It's 2 hours long on the first Thursday of every month, and we have an appetizer that is themed with a cocktail. And never in my wildest dreams did I believe it would turn into what it's turned into, but all of these adult children now plan their visits around this happy hour. And we charge for the drinks, we charge for the appetizers. We'll make like $1,200 in 2 hours, and we're not even trying to make money. It's just more about the event and the excitement and having fun. And so these adult children love to come and be a part of that, and so much so that they've now developed their own badges that are called Future Friendship Village Residents that they will wear to these happy hours. And I think doing that, it just gets them, they're engaged, they're entrenched, they want to be here, they really do. And I think that is something that is helping us drive the boomers and having them move in. So this next page is just some snapshots. We're in the process of repositioning our campus again. When I got here in 2007, we just finished adding a new apartment building, a fitness center, multiple dining venues, a cocktail lounge, a major campus repositioning event. And unfortunately, we all know what happened after 2007. And we do say, had we not done what we did when we did it, you would not be here right now. You really wouldn't. And we got lucky. We survived the downturn. But now we have these apartments that are the original build apartments. They're 40 years old, and it is time to refresh them. So we just finished phase 1. We have it all sold out, but we're landlocked. We have a 50-acre campus, and there is not an inch to grow. So we have made the strategic decision that every building we build is going to have a programmed rooftop. Phase one, I don't have a photo up here, but we have 3 pickleball courts on the rooftop of phase one, as well as a big entertainment area, a little movie theater. People can host events up there. We've been hosting all of our, we do a happy hour, shocker, event for our prospects, where we bring them there, and we have our resident marketing support committee there. And it's just a ton of fun, and it's really translating into amazing sales activity for phase two. This is, like I said, snapshots of a video we created as you kind of walk through what will be on the rooftop of phase two. And it's going to be a restaurant that opens up out to the outdoors, and open kitchen, so residents can engage with the culinary team, have some fun. It's the relationship that exists between our residents and staff is something that's special. It's almost like who's working here and who's living here. Sometimes you're not exactly sure what's happening. But we engaged a local brewery here that we've become friends with, and had this individual help us design what is called a nano brewery. And you'll see that in the bottom right-hand corner. We had them involved in terms of developing the space, all the things that we would need in there, and ultimately speccing out a system, which is, it's beautiful to look at. It's all stainless steel, and will lend itself towards the residents. It'll be a resident-led activity, residents who are interested in brewing beer. And they'll be led by a brewmaster that we will hire as a staff member on our team. And these folks will just have fun. You know, they're going to brew beer. They can take growlers of it home. They can share it with their friends. We have a plan. We'll certainly feature it in our dining venues. And even something I would like to do is, you know, maybe one payday Friday a month where staff could buy growlers of beer at cost. Again, it's always looking to bring the whole thing together. So I think that just kind of highlights another thing that I doubt a lot of folks are doing. And it just, you know, we had these happy hours. We go around and ask people to share hobbies of what they enjoy doing. And this guy threw out brewing beer as I gotcha. And I said, oh, well, let me show you our nano brewery. And you should have, I mean, just to see the look on this guy's face, it was hilarious. It was almost like I planted him in the audience. But anyway, that you can see how that works. And again, I think that those types of things are what's driving our success. Just some real specific examples that I could point to that might help other people say, hey, you know, let's start thinking this way. So that's what I think is helping us. And that's all I had to share today.
Well, Cole, thanks as always. And you can see his contact info there on the screen. So feel free to reach out to Cole if you have any questions that come up after the presentation. And of course, we'll have time for questions at the end. Keep rolling right along here. So we do make sure we leave time for questions. And our last presenter, but certainly not least, is Steve Shields from Action Pact, Changing Communities, Changing Lives. And Steve's presentation, I think, will do a nice job to kind of round all of this out here. And then, like I said, we'll take time for questions at the end. So Steve, feel free to jump in.
Well, Jeff, thank you. I want to thank both you and Bill for including me. And primarily, I'm sitting here thinking I'm excited to be here today and appreciative because I thoroughly enjoyed the folks that preceded me there. And I heard so much in there about what is and what's coming, and the directional forward pull that we need to all be focusing on. And I just learned so much from all of you folks. But Brent, you know, one of the things that you pointed out, and this is true not just beginning with the boomers, but it's still true with the boomers, and it's going to continue to be true for any generation that follows us. As part of the universal human condition is that we all need to have a deep sense of purpose about you know, what is my life and how can I contribute to your life, and a sense of belonging. And I thought you just did a great job of really projecting that. And Cole, the boomers are different. I'm a boomer, and we did grow up with a more party type of approach to our young life. And the boomers have really had the privilege that no other generation before them had, is they didn't grow up in hardship, predominantly like our parents did, who came up in the Depression and really saved democracy and had to come back and rebuild. And we started out just benefiting from all that from day one. And so we have a more embraced life and everything it can bring. And Cole, I think I'm familiar with your campus. My cousin's a firefighter in Arizona, and I've heard about your event. But what you're doing is really creating this sense of, we're not here to get crusty. We're here to seize life and grab it and hang on to it through death. And when I saw the designs, and I was also familiar with you, Rocky, and I haven't met you in person, so I'm so glad to meet you this way, because your designs really, and you really did a great job of projecting this about we need to integrate, we need to not be exclusive, but inclusive. And your designs are really helping encourage existing providers and future providers how to push those boundaries, how to not be cloistered, but more connected to the broader community. And Dana, your data really points to, in fact, it really made me, I'm going to bring up a point that I hadn't even thought of until you started talking about the characteristics. What do we want as boomers? The ones that you're talking to now, I come from a large Catholic family. And so my oldest sister is 80 years old. I'm 65 and I'm not the youngest. And so one thing that's not being talked about is there are early boomers and there's later boomers, and we're not the same. And my family personifies that. My older siblings are early boomers, and they were more the Elvis people who really understood more about our parents' generation than we youngers did. I'm a younger boomer, and we were really more the David Bowie types. It was the world changed in the middle of boomerhood, and so we have to anticipate the difference between the early boomers and the later boomers. And you did a great job of kind of showing. In fact, the data that you're reflecting, Dana, is really almost a hybrid of what the generation immediately preceding us and the boomers, the later boomers, that there's a difference. So I think it's important to hear that, but also project forward on what are these later boomers going to do, because we don't move really fast as a senior living provider group. And there's going to be differences that by the time we get new campuses built, or we plan for additions or changes in our existing campuses, the younger boomers are going to be coming of age. So I want to speak to that. And I'm not going to really highlight a particular campus. We are a vertically integrated company that we do everything kind of backwards. We started out as a provider and then really wanting to change the culture of how we age, and then backed our way into now we do project development, we do architecture, we do interior designs, and we do construction management, and we operate. And then we also consult, and we do financial modeling, we size and scope projects. And that's not because we're trying to build a big company. We're actually a surprisingly small group of people, but it's really about creating a vertical integration about how we create environments, how we change communities, and how we change lives. So if we think about retirement communities, and now we're starting to call them even different names, but regardless of what you call them, this idea of continuum, and Rocky, or Cole, one of the things that you all provide that we're starting to get away from, and I think we're going to make a mistake, is you still, as much as you're partying there, you still are providing security through death. So while a lot of folks are dropping off some of the services, when you really are going to need to be reliant the most, that's going to create a problem when we drop those off, if that becomes the norm. Because if we're trying to really create a lifestyle from I'm making this decision, and we're going to start seeing more, Cole, of 60-year-olds and even late 50s. It's coming. But that's the strategy I want to talk about. We've got to, in my opinion, to ready ourselves for the full boomer generation and even the generation coming after. We've got the retirement community down. If you look at the difference between a CCRC that really started to come of age in the 70s, it was a bunch of apartments with an infirmary in the back. That was the beginning of it. The nursing home was in the back. And we built too many, because I was around it. We built too many studios because we thought, well, they don't need much, right? Well, we've watched it blossom to the point where some of the designs you were showing, Rocky, reflect the CCRC has explosively blossomed. All the amenity spaces are moving into some really cool stuff, but we still have one residual, and Brent, you touched on it, is there's still a stigma. There's still a hesitancy that you spoke to, Dana, that, I'm not ready yet, right? Because we're still associating, as nice as they're getting, we're still associating moving there with I'm old. So people are waiting till they're 70, or they're having symptoms, and their reasons are, well, we don't want to be a problem for the kids, my wife is starting to have some, so I want to make sure that we're at a place where if we need services. That whole paradigm has got to shift. That can't go away, but we really need to shift that to where we're going to move. Where I'm going to move is where I can live well and healthy, spiritually, physically, emotionally, recreationally, through the rest of my life, and that I can live life on my own terms. I maintain my own agency. I retain my sense of self and my sense of purpose, and the environment leverages that. So let's move to the next slide. But okay, so I'm going to talk about an approach. This is more an idea. Oh no, go back to the other one. Sorry. Okay, I'm going to go back to the idea, and I will use one campus which we developed and we designed and we operated, but it was with the intent of turning it over to another group that would buy it. So it's sold, and they're trying to create their own brand. So I'm not going to highlight them. But here was the premise about what we did when we built a retirement community. And I think it's something we need to think about. It plays into everything that everybody said, but it really plays, Rocky, into, from a design standpoint, it plays into what it's obvious your beliefs are. So, and this is about when we're going to create something. The younger boomers, what this stigma is that they don't want to be sequestered. They don't want to be cloistered in a we're all one profile. That's going to become increasingly loud in customer preference. So in anticipating that, what we did was we decided, and most every new retirement community that gets built phases. So we built first a 70,000 square foot healthy living center that attracted, in fact, and that was membership based. And then within that, and alongside of attached to it, we included all the amenity spaces that would be in a retirement community. But we didn't build independent living. And that was first full, and I'll tell you why. Number one, if you look at these urban developments of high density housing that are mixed use and urban, they're retirement communities for 20 and 30 and 40-year-olds, right? So the model of all these amenity spaces and everybody having a hip lifestyle, well, they're just building a retirement community. You haven't retired yet, right? And so now we've got to convert, coming from the senior side, how people experience what all these amenity spaces. So the a part of the stigma for the retirement communities is that when you go visit someone there, even if there's beautiful art and there's, there's a bar in there, and isn't that cool? Is that it is owned by and belonged by and ruled by the independent living residents. So, there might be a nice billiards room, but there's a sign up that said kids can't play on it because they might rip the felt. Or you might go visit someone who's and go to this nice restaurant, but you can't sit here. That's Elsie's chair, right? There is an ownership of these common spaces by the people who live there. So if we want to build for the future, okay, we decided to build this huge healthy living center. The first year we had 3,700 members, and the average age was 37. And then we added on and it had everything with 3 swimming pools. One of them was a rehab, because we put an outpatient rehab center attached as part of the overall large common spaces that began to shoot out the side of this healthy living center. And that brought in some great revenue, but here's what it did. Is one, all the members, which then grew to 4,500, all the members owned all that common space. And the public would come to use the salon, because we designed it so the parking, they could get right out and go right into that piece. So there was a demonstration kitchen, TV show that would show how to cook healthy food. But here's the beauty, ultimately, of how to create multi-generationalism before the independent living people arrive, so they don't have squatters' rights, is that the intergenerational began to happen with outpatient rehab. While it had its own gym and its own really nice pool, a therapy pool, as they began to graduate, we would move them into getting their therapy and training in the healthy living center. And so relationships began to grow and become, in fact, one I get weepy talking about it still, where there was a triathlete that, man, he was there, every day, man, pushed himself so hard, and then at a piece of equipment next to him, there was a man from outpatient rehab that was recovering from a stroke, and he had lost his whole left side. And he would be there with his therapist and work just as hard as that triathlete who was next to him. And they began to notice each other. And I don't know who got inspired by the other the most, but they began to, it was a beautiful relationship, and those began to sprout, right? So the idea of all these 37-year-olds doing their thing, starting to sprinkle in with outpatient rehab folks that were Med A and other insurances, set the stage for all this common space is owned by people of all ages. Now I sold it, but the master plan is right next to the Healthy Living Center. Was left one big blank lot, and that was where 100 to 200 independent living apartments, and then townhomes behind that would tie into the Healthy Living Center. So when those independent living residents arrive, while they may have some club style private spaces so they can still have their deep sense of community, all the common spaces where they go to get their haircut, where they go for restaurants, they're going to see people from 4th Street with 3 kids, and nobody's going to be talking about those children being disruptive. It's normal. So I think I want to share that. I'm sharing that because I think our strategic phasing, especially as we begin to think past these early boomers and into the later boomers and everybody afterwards, this whole world of what we're doing in urban with mixed use and 20-somethings and 30-somethings feeling hip, and they love all the amenities too. We're conditioning a whole nother generation, in addition to all the retirement community peoples. Our first ones that I remember were born in the 1880s, 1890s, right? And so now we're getting a whole population, even downstream, that are getting used to congregate living with shared amenities and building relationships. So this is our time as providers to jump over that hoop from the other side, create the activity first, and create real multi-generational living and experiences versus intergenerational. Intergenerational, really, I've stopped using that word because that just means we have the senior living place and we have people of other ages that come and go. Multi-generational is where we live and work in shared space. So that's the number one thing that I wanted to offer as I think a very important forward pull that needs to guide us as providers and those of us who advise providers. We're both. Then the second piece, and I'll do that in closing, Action Pact introduced the concept of the household model in the late 1990s. That's really what we're known the most for. And the first 10 years of that, in the late 90s into the early 2010s, you would have thought that we were drafting a communist manifesto. It was, for people in skilled and on the other side. And make no mistake, it's critically important as we're building that we're not just thinking about that front end. The days of the double doors in the back and a whole different lifestyle that ends once you go on the other side of that are over. And that doesn't mean that we abandon doing that and just do assisted living, or it means we need to look at how do we create the ability for a person to not lose home, to stay at the driver's seat of their own life, which means I get up when I want, I get to pick my own clothes because it's my right. I eat what I want when I want. Those are all very feasible financially and operationally. We've proved it over and over. We've done them in Ireland, we've done them in Australia, we've done them all along the Eastern Seaboard. We've helped people in almost 40 states now. There are over 3,000 of them flying under individual flags. So it doesn't feel like there's as many as there are, but it's still less than 10% of the total supply of providers. Those linoleum floors that Brent talked about are still out there in abundance. So if we're going to create these in the future, and then we need to listen to Cole and his company, is you cannot drop that off because it's more complex. You can't drop off skilled nursing because it's harder. Because if we're bringing people in and we're getting them in for a larger portion of their life, more and more, if we do this right, we'll get people in their late 50s, 60s is going to become normal. But 70% of people who choose retirement communities, and Dana's data reinforced it, is they want to know the security of the future is there, right? It can't be why they moved there, but it might be why they don't pick to move there, right? So it's got to be there, and we've got to stop turning our way away from facing the challenge of creating things like the household model. Let's go to the next slide, and then I'll wrap up here. Is when we become reliant, and I want us, I'm using that word now instead of dependent. Reliant for things like dressing and bathing, and also needing licensed skilled care. I still want to have a home. I deserve to have a home. You deserve to have a home where I live, where you ring the doorbell to get in, and that you are able to live your life on your own terms. We need to think twice before we either drop that off or not change it enough. So in closing, we've got the middle down. We need to rethink the front, and we need to rethink the back. And I want to thank you, and it's been an honor to be a co-panelist with you all, and God bless you.
Steve, thanks so much. And thanks again to all of our panelists, to everyone who joined today. I think there was a lot of really, really good information here, and I think we covered a very important topic for the industry from a lot of different angles. So again, thanks to everyone. We'll take some questions now with the time we've got left. I've had a couple come through that I via the chat that I can ask, and then we'll open it up for anyone else. The first one, and I'm not sure who wants to take this, or maybe more than more than one of our panelists, but how soon do you feel, or maybe there's data, how soon will the boomers be the primary market? I don't know, Brent, if you want to maybe start with that.
Yeah, I think it's still going to be a while, especially for the assisted living. I just feel like it's so need driven. I love Cole's vision and the way he targets and goes after these younger people. I mean, that's the future right there. It's just, we're trying to target the more independent people with the larger campuses and bigger apartments. We're having some success, but it's not the boomers. I mean, these people are in their late 70s, sometimes early 80s. So we still have a little while. I think the Del Webbs and the Fountain Glens, the 55 pluses, are going to continue to have their piece of the pie, but I think we still have longer than I'm wanting, but it's going to happen. It's the huge waves coming. And so we'll be ready.
I have this to offer, that within the communities that we work with, every 7 years you turn the carpets, right? Every 15 years you're reworking the programming. And again, your mortgages run out in 30 years. So usually you're thinking about new buildings and things, right? So as an innovator and contributor to this market space, we're always thinking about how can we future-proof you as the market changes. And so sometimes that means very tailored architecture. Sometimes it means just getting the architecture out of the way so that your future programming and your residents have a place that fits as it evolves. So as you think about the boomers coming, yes, we've been addressing the oldest daughter, if you will, in terms of the accompanying a prospective residents. But as the boomers come on, quite frankly, as I said earlier, we're designing for ourselves. So it's really potent to think about, okay, what would this building feel like in 15 years? And so how does it attend to the desires of the residents, their families, and the staff and caregivers within the community?
Another question that we had, and also want to give anybody who's still listening in a chance to ask if they haven't sent through the chat, but some folks were curious about, do the early boomers represent any kind of a real market for AL at this point, or for skilled nursing? And I think Brent kind of answered that with his first question. Cole, I wonder what your thoughts are on that.
I mean, not that I could see right now. I just don't think they're quite what we're seeing here at that age, at that point. So I don't see that.
Got a couple more in the chat box, but anybody who has a question, maybe that they didn't send through chat, I'll leave it open here. Feel free to ask away. If not, we'll get to a couple more of these and we'll wrap up. Well, looks like we're going to stay shy on the ask in and go through the chat. So a couple more here. Is there any regional aspect to the boomer market? I'm not totally sure what they mean by that, but anyone want to jump on that?
Yeah, I could take that one. I think that actually I'm sitting in Western Kansas, and it's not just rural; it's frontier. And I just came yesterday from a $60 million project we're doing in North Carolina, and so we're all over the country. The biggest difference I see is actually more relative to urban versus second size market and rural market. And I think we need to pay attention to the differences in boomerdom, boomerness, when we look at the different size markets and the different cultured markets. But beyond that, I don't think that there's too much of a differentiation.
And one question that I found really interesting because we've talked a lot about the boomers on this, but of course we know that ACIs play a role as well in the process, and a lot of those ACIs are, especially for the older boomers, are Gen X. How does that play into it? How is Gen X? How are the boomers' kids going to be different than the boomers have been the ACIs in the past? That's going to be an entirely different thing.
They're going to be out of money.
That's what they said about us, Rocky.
Okay.
And then last one, we'll wrap up here. Do we feel like the boomers are going to be financially ready as a whole? Do they have what they need? That kind of builds off of what you were just laughing about there, Steve.
I think there's going to be a split. I don't think there's a yes, they will or no, they won't. I think what's happening in our society, and this isn't speaking in political terms at all, is there is a broadening of the gap. So those who have more have a lot more, and those who have less have a lot less. And then there's this middle territory, and we're seeing it in our applications. This isn't just theoretical. We're seeing it in the applications. So there is an upper percent that have more money than our parents ever thought about having. That upper 10%, it's unbelievable.
Yeah,
there's just more people like that, and but it's almost like a barbell. There's as many who have as who don't, and then this middle, it's almost just like a distribution like that. And so our solutions, which is, I'm out in Western Kansas now, where the solutions, where we have to be more creative. But there are boomers now already who are retiring, and there has to be housing solutions in rural areas.
Yeah, I was going to say the offering is becoming more and more diversified. And again, it's easy just to use the boomer, but as we've talked about, there's a lot of different ways to get your head around the tailoring of the programming in the communities, where we're talking about small pocket park senior communities or vertical high-rise in downtown settings. That's kind of two extreme polarized perspectives, but the middle market solution, there's so much opportunity, and it'll have to be tailored to that. And as Brent talked, technology will play a huge role in terms of making that accessible, in terms of affordability and appropriate for seniors.
Yeah, I think there's going to be more apps where seniors can connect so they can live together to save on cost. I think there's going to be more tiny homes, and I think there might be a shift towards that, where they live in little villages. Or I've seen the concept of younger people living in more of a perimeter, where people who have more that are older in the more central area, where it's all in one complex. So I think there's going to be different variations to help people who need more affordable options, because there's really not a lot of good options out there that are nice right now, that are good for them.
Any final thoughts from our panel before we wrap up?
This has been great.
Yeah, thank you.
I love this space.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah,
we've
thank you,
enjoyed
Jeff.
it,
Thanks,
and like I said, you guys got to be the panel for our first one. We do plan to do more of these as part of a larger series called Bellwether Insights, and we look forward to discussing senior living from a wide variety of aspects. So for those who joined, we'll make sure you get a video copy of the webinar, and feel free to use it as you need to, and we'll make sure that you get that. Again, we're Bell PR and marketing, www.bellpr.org. If we can assist with anything from marketing to PR, communication, anything in between, feel free to look us up and let us know. We're working with clients across the country, and we're very excited about what we're doing. So again, thanks to everyone who joined. Thanks to our panel we'll let y'all go now. We know this was a long one, but we think it was worthwhile, and a lot of great info here. I know I learned a lot, and I'm sure everyone else did as well. So to the panel, thank you. And to our to those who joined in and listened in, thank you as well.
Thank you.
Chef.
Bye.
Bye all.